little harder, stack those sats, don't stack the dollar.
Right then. Now in this video I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to answer the question, do I regret not buying Bitcoin sooner? Or do I regret not buying Bitcoin when I first heard about it, which was probably around 2009, 2010 originally? The short answer is no, I don't, and I'm going to explain exactly why. But first of all, I'm going to give you some context. So back when I was a teenager, I was kind of chronically living online like most teenagers around that time. I remember I was every weekend going to the LAN centre in town, and I was playing Counter-Strike online with my mates in this LAN centre, eating noodles and just doing that whole nerdy teenage thing. Also at the same time, I was getting big into BitTorrent and peer-to-peer file sharing, and I think I was probably one of only two kids that I can remember at the time who knew how to download songs for free online. I remember I was using Aries, LimeWire a little bit at times, but mostly Aries, and I was probably around 13, 14, 15, something like that, and I would download albums, or it was individual songs at the time, but download the songs, burn them onto a CD, and then take them into school. I would sell them off for £2 at a time. So very much a music pirate. But I was learning this new tech from a young age, and I was a member of this file sharing website at the time called Oink. Now Oink was probably the first major music pirating site, apart from Pirate Bay, but this was the first big private one online that I can remember. And I was a member of it, and I think it was around 2004 to 2007. It got shut down in 2007, so I would have been 16 at that time. And after that, I was a member of WhatCD, which was another private torrenting music site. I've got a little bit lost here. There used to be a cut through here, but there's not anymore. Oh well, I'll just have a wander around this field. Yeah, WhatCD. So this will be nostalgic for some, if you remember WhatCD back in the day. But it was just another big online music torrenting website. And I was on there from when it started, so 2007. And I believe it was probably hanging around those forums where I first heard about Bitcoin, because I remember sitting in my mum's kitchen at the time and reading about Bitcoin mining, that you could make money just from leaving your computer on. And I remember looking into it thinking, oh, I like money, I could make some easy money here. And as I delved into it a little bit more, it turned out that Bitcoin was about 8 pence, and the amount of electricity it takes to mine a Bitcoin was the equivalent of 12 pence. So I was just like, nah, not worth it. You know, not worth leaving the family computer on 24/7, especially if it's going to make, or if it's going to cost more in electricity than I get back in Bitcoin. So that was my first exposure to Bitcoin, and I think it was probably around 2009 when it first came out. And I assume it was from hanging around these forums, you know, these BitTorrent forums at the time. Now you could say, do you regret not mining Bitcoin at the time? And the answer is no. And I'll tell you why. Because at the time I was 18 years old. Now, Bitcoin, let's say I mined 1,000 Bitcoin at that time, which would have been pretty easy, because at the time the difficulty rating of mining a block was low. And the block reward was 50 Bitcoin. So you could mine Bitcoin on a laptop, on a desktop computer. We had an average Dell desktop computer at the time, and that would have mined Bitcoin easily then. So I could have easily stacked 1,000 Bitcoin. Now, when Bitcoin's price would have gone to £1 even, as an 18-year-old lad, if I knew that this random internet coin that I'd just mined was worth £1,000, let's say I mined 1,000, which was very possible to do. As an 18-year-old lad, I would have sold all of them. I would have easily sold all of those coins. And then, my thinking is, I would be in more regret now, knowing that one day I owned 1,000 Bitcoin, which would now be worth £85 million, but I sold them for 1,000. Even if, let's say I did that, but I didn't sell them at £1, I just forgot about them. I remember around the time Silk Road was around, which I think was 2011 to 2013. I remember hearing about Silk Road at the time, but I never went on it because I'd heard kind of stories that there was this dark web where you could buy pure kilos of Class A drugs and AK-47s, and you can order hits on people and you pay with this Bitcoin. I never logged on just because I was too scared. Like, downloading the odd Metallica song, got no issue with that, but logging into this Silk Road thing where actual illegal things happen, it was a bit too much for me, so I never logged on. But I remember hearing about it being shut down. So let's say I forgot about those 1,000 coins that I mined and just thought, oh, okay, well, I've got 1,000 coins, not worth anything, forgot. I would have definitely heard about them again in 2013 when Silk Road got shut down, because it was a big thing. Especially in those kind of like nerdy internet forums where I was hanging out, like Bitcoin forum, not Bitcoin forum, sorry, BitTorrent forums and all of that stuff. So even if I'd forgotten about the Bitcoin, I would have then heard about it and it would be in my mind again when Silk Road got shut down. Now at the end of 2013, one Bitcoin was, I think 2013 closed off the year at £460. So at the time I was 22 years old. So if I had 1,000 Bitcoin, and even if I'd forgotten about it, I'd mined it all those years earlier on my family Dell computer, if I found out that that stack I'd mined was worth £460,000, there is no way in hell I would have not sold that. I would have sold it in a second, and I wouldn't have kept even one. It would be gone. And, you know, 460,000 quid for a 22-year-old guy, pretty much life-changing money. I could have bought a house, bought a car, and just lived pretty cool, fun lifestyle that any 22-year-old would want to. Having said that, I would have sold them, and those coins today would be worth 85 million quid, which is insanely life-changing money, generational wealth, you know, a lot different than 400,000. So, do I regret not buying Bitcoin or having Bitcoin when I first heard about it? No, because I 100% would have sold all of those as soon as it was worth anything. I would not have held on to them at all. So the regret of knowing that I would once have had, let's say, 1,000 Bitcoin, but I sold it for 1,000 quid, or even if I sold it for 400,000 quid, by now that money would be gone. So, no, I don't regret not mining it when I first heard about it in 2009, because there's no way I would have not sold it for some cash. So, yeah, it reminds me of this story of that guy James Howells who mined 8,000 Bitcoin on his laptop and then forgot about it, and his girlfriend threw the hard drive away, which was about 15 years ago, and he's just been trying to get access to that dump for the last 15 years because his Bitcoin are now worth about $1 billion quid, something like that. Now, I was watching an interview with that guy a few days ago, and that interviewer said, basically he mined the Bitcoin, forgot about it, put it in a drawer, and that was that. But when he remembered, oh, Bitcoin, I've got some of those, he realized he'd thrown the wrong hard drive out. The interviewer said, at that time, that Bitcoin that you'd mined, 8,000 Bitcoin, was worth about £1 million. And the interviewer said, would you have sold it for £1 million? And the guy hesitates and he's like, no, I don't think I did. I don't think I would have.
Here's a question for you. If you did know it was 700,000, then would you have cashed that out?
I don't think so. Not at that rate. Because if it had already reached that rate, then it was clear that it was going higher. This is a feelings thing. It's maths.
And what was you doing in your life at this time? Was you working?
Yeah, working a 9 to 5, doing a stupid amount of overtime.
He would have. Oh, he 1,000,000% would have sold it for £1 million quid. No, no hesitation. He would have sold it all for £1 million quid. So, to answer the question, no, I don't regret not mining Bitcoin when I first heard about it in 2009. I don't regret buying it randomly sooner, because I would have 100% sold it, and I would be left with even more regret knowing that I had a big bag of 1,000 Bitcoin, for example, and I fumbled the bag. As an 18-year-old lad that didn't know what Bitcoin was, I would have fumbled the bag. And as a 22-year-old, a few years later, I would have fumbled that bag. So it's better to have never had a bag than to have fumbled the bag. That's a saying that I'm going to coin today. It's better to have never had a bag than to have had a bag and fumbled it. There we go. You can put that quote in the history books. So yeah, I mean, it clicked with me last year, 2024. Since then, I've been trying to stack as many sats as I possibly can. And that's it. I'm trying to stay humble, stack sats, as they say. If you're not stacking, you're slacking. All those other sayings. So that's that. Just thought I'd answer that question. That'll do. See you later.
Buy a little lower, try a little harder. Stack those sats, don't stack the dollar. Buy a little lower, try a little harder. Stack those sats, don't stack the dollar.